guys, how are you doing today? I hope you're doing amazing and fantastic and wonderful. Today's video is for the chapter 1 readings of the first 2 short stories in Joanne Fluke, Laura Levine, and Leslie Meyer's Christmas Sweets. This is an anthology with 3 short stories including recipes, which is super cool. This is the book for December's Cozy Escape Book Club, as well as 12 Days of Cosmas. So you guys can read this starting now, and we are going to have our live stream on December 14th on Saturday so that everybody can spend time with their friends and their families for the holidays. I am super excited about this. I love that there are recipes throughout here. I have made one recipe that I will clip in while I'm reading so that this video isn't a gajillion years long, because no one wants to watch my face for that long of a time. I'm going to read chapters 1 and chapters 1 in the 2 first short stories, The 12 Desserts of Christmas by Joanne Fluke and Nightmare on Elf Street by Laura Levine. And I'm really excited. So without further ado, let's get started, because I don't want to, you know, make you have to watch me for forever. So as I'm reading, I am going to put clips of me making this very tasty dessert, and you guys can just sit back, relax, read along, and watch the video. Lisa is also going to be doing this, except she's going to read the first chapter of the last short story, and she is making 2 recipes. So after you're finished watching my video, go over to Lisa's channel. I'll leave it linked down below, and you can go and watch her video as well, which I'm sure is going to be much more scrumptious than mine, because while I do read aloud semi-well, she does baking very well. Alright, so chapter 1. It was a mild day by Minnesota standards. The temperature was in the low teens, and there was no wind to kick up the 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. The skies were laden gray, and more snow was predicted before the day was over. But Julie Jansen didn't have time to think about the weather. She fairly flew across the quad, sprinting for the oldest and most impressive brick building on the campus. Only the corrugated rubber soles on her snow boots kept her from wiping out as she hit the path of ice that always formed near the flagpole. Julie was breathing hard as she pulled open the heavy door to the main building and stopped at the cloakroom to make a lightning fast switch from boots to shoes. Then the race was on again, and she dashed down the hallway, breaking the school rule about running in the halls, her dark blonde ponytail whipping from side to side the way it had when she'd been a cheerleader at Jordan High. There'd been no time to braid her hair and put it up in the elaborate style she wore in the classroom to make her look older. She'd slept through her alarm, and there had been barely enough time to get dressed. It was departure day at Lakes Academy, and Julie was late for the final faculty meeting before Christmas vacation. Julie skidded around the corner, the ends of her silk scarf flapping, and headed into the home stretch. Perhaps they hadn't started yet. Maybe Dr. Calder had gotten a last-minute call and she could slide into her chair before he came in. But her hopes died a quick death as she neared her destination. The door to the conference room was standing open, and she could hear the headmaster's stentorian voice. His head was turned away from the door, and Julie did her best to slink in unnoticed, but just as she thought she was going to succeed, he turned to look her way. Julie sank into her chair, her cheeks hot and her breath coming in little puffs from the exertion. She could... Cleo, she keeps like hitting the book. Could her students possibly be correct when they claimed that Dr. Coldner had the eyes in the back of his head? "We're so glad you decided to join us, Miss Jansen," Dr. Calder intoned, and 13 pairs of eyes turned to stare at her disapprovingly. The 14th pair, a warm brown color that reminded Julie of melted chocolate, had held only compassion for her embarrassment and what Julie hoped was the beginnings of romance. Matt Sherwood, the second newest teacher at Lakes Academy, knew exactly why she was late. They attended the Christmas program in the auditorium, and after their students had left, they'd taken a stroll under the tall pines that stood like sentinels outside the main gate of the academy, and he held her close to his side. Shivering a bit after the cold exertion, Julie had suggested sharing the thermos of hot cocoa the cooks always left out for the teachers who worked late, and they'd stayed up until almost 3 in the morning. Julie tore her eyes away from Matt's and turned to the headmaster to apologize, but instead of scowling, Dr. Coulter was smiling at her. That was ominous, and Julie clamped her lips shut and let her gaze skitter away. When she'd first arrived at the academy in September, one of the older teachers had told her that the only time Dr. Coulter ever smiled at a teacher was when he was getting ready to put one over on her. Ah, the enthusiasm of youth. Dr. Coulter's smiles grew a bit wider. I happen to know that Mrs. Jansen was up very late last night, but here she is, only 5 minutes late, ready to share her love of learning and her zest for life with us. Uh-oh. Julie groaned under her breath. Dr. Coulter must have had his spies out last night. It was recommended that the teachers retire before midnight, and most of the older staff did just that. But someone had spotted her with Matt and squealed on them. If Julie ever found out who that rat with the big mouth was, she'd... This is one of the reasons I'm sure Miss Jansen won't mind filling in for us this year. If my wife and I weren't expected at her sister's, we'd be glad to shoulder the responsibility. Unfortunately, it's a bit late to change our plans. We'll be back here the day after Christmas to assume charge. What is he talking about? Julie shot a silent question to her co-conspirator in late night conversation, but Matt gave a little shrug of the broad shoulders she'd found so attractive. It seemed her partner in after-curfew crime didn't know either. As always, we're the last to know, Dr. Coulter said with a sigh. The reasons are varied, some legitimate and others, shall we say, impossibly lame. There were several titters from the older members of the staff. Julie shot another glance at Matt and was pleased to see that he looked almost as puzzled as she felt. 6 unfortunate children will be staying here over the semester break, Dr. Coulter went on to explain. 3 girls and 3 boys. That meant 2 teachers, 1 male, 1 female, must be in residence to supervise them. This is where you enter the picture, Miss Jansen. Because you're unmarried and have no pressing family obligation, I would appreciate it if you'd stayed with the girls. Of course, you certainly have the opportunity to decline, and if you do, we'll simply have to make other arrangements. Julie had thought about it for a moment. She didn't have anywhere she had to go for Christmas. Her parents were taking the Christmas cruise they'd always dreamed of, and she planned to spend the holidays with her older brother. They'd never been close, and David and his wife would probably be relieved if she canceled. Then her nieces wouldn't have to double up to give her a bedroom. Miss Jansen. Julie drew a deep breath and jumped in with both feet. I'll be glad to stay, Dr. Collier. Excellent. All of us appreciate your sacrifice. Julie noticed with surprise that there were smiles and nods around the table. It seems all she had to do to be accepted by the rest of the staff was to take a job nobody else wanted. She smiled back and waited for the other shoe to drop. Dr. Coulter needed a male teacher for the boys, and there were only 2 unmarried male teachers on staff. One was Mr. Lavenger, the math teacher. He was only a year or 2 away from retirement and a bit of a curmudgeon. Spending Christmas vacation with Mr. Lavenger as her sole adult companion would seem endless. But she could handle it if she had to. The only other unmarried teacher was, dare she hope? Mr. Sherwood, Dr. Coulter voiced the name that was dancing across the screen of Julia's mind. I notice that you have no family commitments. Would you mind staying with Miss Jansen and supervising the boys? Not at all. I thought not, Dr. Coulter said dryly. Matt had answered so quickly, Julie's cheeks felt hot and she hoped she wasn't blushing. The kiss they'd shared at her door had been a lot more romantic than casual. And as far as Julie was concerned, it certainly beat their former colleague-to-colleague friendship. A little tinge of anticipation swept from the top of her head right down to her toes. If the speed of Matt's answer was any indication, perhaps he was starting to feel about her the way she already felt about him. There was the unusual bustle of the parents as the parents arrived. Suitcases were dropped and spilled open. Apologies filled the crisp air as the parents collided in a headlong rush to hug their children, and students hollered out their goodbyes to their friends. The first car left, followed by the second, and less than an hour later, the last car drove away through the freshly fallen snow, leaving 6 dejected children and 2 concerned teachers in their wake. Julie glanced down at the 3 girls she was shepherding. 6-year-old Hope looked more dejected than hopeful. Her older sister Joy wasn't at all joyful, and Serena, the oldest of the girls at almost 13, was about as far from serene as a girl could get. One look at Matt's boys and Julie knew they were in big trouble. Spencer who just turned 14, and Gary and Larry, 10-year-old twins whose parents were getting divorced, didn't look any more cheerful than the girls. She had to do something to take their minds off the fact that they wouldn't be with their families this Christmas. "Let's plan something special for this afternoon," Matt said, beating Julie to the punch. "We've got a whole place to ourselves, and we can do anything we want." "Anything?" Julie asked him, winking at the girls. "Well, almost anything. What did you have in mind, Mrs. Jansen?" Julie gave him a mischievous smile. "I want to borrow a pair of roller skates and skate down the main hallway." "But that's against the rules, Miss Jansen," Serena pointed out. "It's double demerits." "Then it should be double the fun." "What do you have to do to get a single demerit?" "Well, you get one if you eat in your room and one if you run in the hall." "Okay, let's do those two. We'll eat ice cream in our room, straight out of the carton." Julie noticed that this drew smiles from all the kids, so she went on. "I ran in the halls this morning when I was late to the teacher's meeting, and it was great. We can line up and have a race from the front door all the way to Dr. Calder's office and back again. And when we're done with that, well, we'll let Hope decide next. How about it, Hope? What would you like to do?" "I want to talk real loud in the library." Hope's eyes began to sparkle. "That's against the rules." "And I want to dance at the top of my teacher's desk," Joy chimed in. "What do you want to do, Serena?" "I want to draw a mustache on Dr. Calder's picture." Larry gasped loudly. "Or he'll find out you did it." Gary took over his twin's thought, "and he'll give you 1,000,000 demerits." "No, he won't. Not if I wash it off before he gets back." "What do you want to do, Spence?" "I want to climb up on the bell tower and throw snowballs." "Us too," Gary seconded. "Larry and I always wanted to do that." Larry finished the sentence for him. "No way," Matt said, and everyone turned to look at him. But was he going to be a stickler and enforce the rules? But then Matt started to grin, and everyone knew he was teasing. "I won't let you climb up to the bell tower unless I get to throw the first snowball." "Deal," the boys shouted, and Julie noticed that everyone was wearing a smile. Everyone except Hope, who looked worried again. "What is it, Hope?" Julie asked her. "I saw Mrs. Dryer leave. Are we going to starve to death before she comes back?" "Of course we won't." Julie reached out to give her a hug. "Mrs. Dryer made lots of dinners before she left, and she put them in the freezer for us. Dr. Calder told me she even baked a ham for our Christmas dinner." "How about Christmas cookies?" Larry wanted to know. "The ones with colored frosting that looks like Santa and Christmas trees and stars and stuff?" Gary finished the description. "Yes," Hope chimed in. "It won't be Christmas without cookies." "I'm sure she made those too," Matt said, stepping up to take Julie's arm. "Come on, men, let's escort the ladies to the kitchen so we can find out what goodies Mrs. Dryer left for us." "Uh-oh," Julie gave a little groan as she read the note the school cook had taped to the refrigerator. "What's the matter?" Matt left the children, exclaiming over the menus Mrs. Dryer had written out for them, and walked over to join Julie. "Mrs. Dryer didn't bake your favorite?" "Mrs. Dryer didn't bake anyone's favorite." "What do you mean?" She left apologizing, but she barely had time to make the entrees. She ordered Christmas ice cream rolls with little green Christmas trees in the middle, but they didn't come. "You mean no desserts?" Julie nodded, holding up the note. "She says there's a whole case of Jell-O and assorted flavors and some canned fruit cocktail in the pantry, but that's it." "No Christmas cookies?" Hope asked, tears threatening again. "Of course there'll be Christmas cookies," Matt assured her. "Since Mrs. Dryer didn't have time to do it, we'll bake them ourselves." "You bake, don't you, Mrs. Jansen?" "Actually, no," Julie admitted, feeling a bit like crying herself. "I'm the world's worst baker. I took home economics in high school, all the girls did, but the only one who could burn things faster than I was Andrea Swenson. We were cheerleaders together at Jordan High, and they called us Twinkie Twins." "Why?" "Because every time they held a bake sale to raise money for the pep squad, every girl was supposed to bring something to school to sell. Andrea and I used to bring Twinkies until her sister found out about it, and then Hannah..." Julie stopped speaking and started to smile. "Why are you smiling like that?" Matt wanted to know. "Hannah baked like a dream, and all we had to do was tell her when the bake sales were, and she'd bake for us. I can still taste her lemon meringue pie. It was just fantastic. But here's the good part. The last time I talked to Andrea, she said Hannah was back home and she opened a bakery and coffee shop in Lake Eden." "Lake Eden," Matt began to smile too. "That's only 20 miles away." "Exactly. Why don't I call and see if Hannah would bake us some desserts?" "Great idea," Matt said, and the kids all nodded. Okay, then the only question is, how many desserts do we need? Julie flipped over Mrs. Dyer's sad little note about the absence of desserts and pulled out a pen. 1 for every night, Matt said. Got it, Julie said, her pen moving quickly across the paper. Do you think we should order extra desserts like cookies and muffins and cakes for snacks, or is that too much? Matt glanced at the kids and saw 6 hopeful expressions. It's not too much. Let's order an even dozen. If extra wide smiles and grateful expressions could have been translated into dollars, Matt would have been a rich man. As it was, he and Julie were heroes of the day, and that pleased him much more than anything else he could think of. Counting Mr. Sherwood and me, there are 8 of us, Julie went on. That means everyone can choose a favorite dessert. Then we'll decide on 4 others together, and that'll make 12. We'll have the 12 desserts of Christmas, almost like the song, like 12 days of Christmas. That's right, Matt flashed Julie a smile that included their whole group. We could even change the lyrics and sing it for our friends when they get back. Willie's gonna wish he stayed here, Spencer said, grinning widely. Serena nodded. Liz, too. She kept telling me about all the presents she was getting, but I bet she won't have 12 desserts. That means we're special, Joy added. We certainly are, Julie confirmed it, smiling at each child in turn. Let's get busy so I can call Hannah. Now, who wants to choose tonight's dessert? It seemed to be the morning for running late. 20 miles away in the little Minnesota town of Lake Eden, Hannah Swenson was almost an hour behind schedule. I'm really sorry, Lisa. She apologized to her partner for the 4th time since she dashed into the kitchen at the cookie jar, their bakery and coffee shop. I really didn't mean to saddle you with all the baking this morning. That's okay, Lisa said, passing a tray of chocolate chip crunch cookies to Hannah. Herb gave me a ride to town this morning in his squad car, so I got here early. Mayor Bascombe asked him to figure out how many tickets he gave for speeding in the school zone in front of Jordan High. Why does Mayor Bascombe need to know that? Hannah asked, placing the pan of baked cookies in the baker's rack. The city's council's voting on speed bumps this morning, and the mayor wants to prove that we need them. Do you know what they call speed bumps in the Bahamas? Hannah asked, turning to face her partner. No, what? Sleeping policeman. Hannah delivered the information and then stared hard at her partner. Either Lisa had developed a facial tic or was doing her utmost to stifle a laugh. You think sleeping policeman is funny? Lisa shook her head. It's more cute than funny. Then why are you trying so hard not to laugh? It's your hair. It's poking up out of your cap again. Just call me Medusa. Hannah gave an exasperated sigh and tucked her unruly red curls back under her health board mandated cap. The phone started ringing while I was washing it, and I didn't get a chance to put on conditioner. What do we have left to bake? Just the cherry winks and we're through. Right, I'll get the cherries. Hannah headed off to the pantry to fetch the essential ingredient for the cookies her customers loved at the holidays. Do you think it's too early to do half green, half red? I don't think so. Almost everyone is already decorated for Christmas. Gil Surma put his lights up over 3 weeks ago. Gil and Bonnie are always early. They want everything to look so nice for their Christmas parties. Lisa glanced at the calendar that hung on the wall by the phone and saw the 3 new entries that Hannah made. Bonnie called you to set up dates for the parties? That's right, we're catering everything just like last year. She gave you the order for her brownies? Yes and yes. Lisa looked a bit confused. Why did you say 2 yeses? She wants brownies for her brownies. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Let's make them in bonbon papers the way my mother used to. Then I can frost them and put half a pecan on each one. The girls would love that. But are you sure you want to go to so much work? I'm sure, Lisa glanced at the calendar again. What does she want for the Cub Scout party? Old-fashioned sugar cookies. But the party's not just for Cub Scouts. It's one huge party for the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts together. And it's going to last all afternoon. That's nice. I'll do the Scout logo and frosting on the sugar cookies. The boys really like that. How about the Girl Scouts? Bonnie's driving them to the mall so they can shop for their presents. Then they're going back to her house for hot chocolate and cinnamon crisps. Okay, so while I was in the middle of reading, this became done. And I might have like messed up a little bit because I didn't wait to just, you know, get it before I wanted to try it. And so it's hot and I'm waiting for it to cool on the racks and then cut and everything. But I wanted to taste it now and I'm impatient. I can tell that it's going to taste really good. once it's solidified and it's not all a hot mess. But it's pretty tasty. That's real good. Lisa glanced at her calendar again. I can help you cater the Girl Scout party. Herb's got a bowling lead that night. Great, Hannah said, or Hannah smiled at her young partner. Lisa had more energy than anyone she'd ever met. Of course, age might have something to do with it. She had just turned 20 and Hannah was a decade and a bit past that. Not that she wanted to think about age, especially when her biological clock was ticking and her mother delighted in reminding her that she didn't have many childbearing years left. And now it was almost Christmas and everyone was talking about families and kids. Hannah's smile took a wistful turn. Soon her newest niece, Bethany, would be old enough to give her that wonderful wide baby grin and reach up to pat her face. Babies were delightful with their chubby little hands, their squeals of utter delight when you tickled them, and their warm, sweet scent. What? Lisa asked, noticing that Hannah had stopped at the pantry door and was staring at the wall. Nothing. I was just thinking, that's all. Don't forget to save the red cherry juice for the dough, Lisa reminded her as Hannah got out the cherries. Green juice makes them look really yucky. Yucky's not in this bakery, Hannah said, heading back to the workstation. People want things that taste good, but they also like... She stopped abruptly and turned to eye the phone on the wall as it began to ring. Mother! She said with the same inflection that she would have voiced if she'd slid off the road into a ditch. It wasn't that she disliked her mother, it was just that Dolores had already called her 3 times this morning. You sure it's your mother? I'm sure. Nobody places orders this early and we don't open for another 45 minutes. Who else could it be? But I thought your mother called while you were at home and that's why you were late. She did. I see. But she has to call again because she's got something she forgot to tell you? You got it. Hannah turned to eye her partner suspiciously. Has my mother been calling you too? No, Marge has. Hannah was amazed. She always thought calling back several times was a trait unique to her mother. Marge does that too? Yes, but I don't mind. Marge is the best mother-in-law in the whole world. Warning lights flashed in Hannah's logical mind. Hold on, you can't make that kind of value judgment without a standard of comparison. Sure, Lisa waved away her breach of logic. I'm perfectly happy married to Herb, and there's no way I'm ever going to get married to another standard of comparison. That means he is it, and Margie is the best mother-in-law in the world. Lisa stopped speaking and turned around toward the ringing phone. Are you going to get that or do you want me to? Will you? Hannah asked, heading for the workstation. She'd have to talk to her mother eventually, but at least she could get in another sip of coffee before she had to do it. The cookie jar, Lisa speaking. Hannah watched as her partner grabbed a piece of pin and, of course, we can. We just baked a big batch of chocolate chip crunch cookies and we'll put them away for you. But if you don't mind me asking, why do you need 12 dozen chocolate chip cookies? There was silence and then Lisa shrugged. Okay, well, we'll package them up for you right now. Who is that? Hannah asked with her partner when her partner hung up the phone. Your sister. Andrea, Hannah guessed, and she wasn't surprised when Lisa nodded. Hannah's youngest sister, Michelle, was knee-deep in final exams at McAllister College in Minneapolis. What did Andrea say when you asked her why she needed 12 dozen cookies? She told me it was a crisis and the whole thing was just awful. What whole thing? I don't know. She said she was driving right over and she'd tell us all about it when she got here. So that was chapter 1 of that book. And the recipe for this was called... Let's see, multiple choice bar cookies. So it's pretty good. I like it. The next chapter I'm going to read is Nightmare on Elf Street by Laura Levine. And thank goodness it's a much shorter one because this video is a gajillion years long. I'm sorry. Chapter 1. You'd think after all I've done for my cat, the belly rubs, the back scratches, the endless cans of fancy feast, you'd think she could at least wear a pair of reindeer antlers for 3 minutes while I took her picture for my annual Christmas card. But no, Prozac, the little drama queen, Prozac, had decided that the fuzzy felt antlers I'd ordered online were emissaries from the devil and was determined to avoid them at all costs. Pumpkin face, I pleaded. Just think how adorable you'll look. But she glared at me balefully. I'm already adorable and don't call me pumpkin face. I was on my knees that late November morning, begging her for the umpteenth time to let me put the antlers on her stubborn little head when the phone rang. Wearily, I picked it up to hear, "Fabulous news, Janie. I've just spent the past 45 minutes fondling the feet of an absolute fabulously wealthy Malibu blonde." No, you haven't stumbled onto a foot fetish novella. The voice on the other end of the line was my neighbor, Lance Venable, who happens to fondle feet for a living as a shoe salesman at Neiman Marcus. "She wound up buying 5 pairs of Jimmy Choos," Lance was saying. "And guess what? It turns out her husband owns that new mall out on Santa Monica, Conspicuous Consumption Plaza." Of course, that wasn't really what it was called. I've changed the mall's name to protect the innocent, namely moi, from a lawsuit. It seems they're looking for someone to write their ads, and I told her all about you and your award-winning campaign for Apple computers. But Lance, I've never worked for Apple. My biggest client is Toilet Masters Plumbers, and the only award I've ever won is the Golden Plunger from the LA Plumbers Association. A mere technicality, honey. The bottom line is you've got an interview with their HR gal tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I had to admit I was excited. How nice it would be to have something glamorous to write in between toilet bowl ads. Oh, Lance, you're an angel. Try to remember that when shopping for my Christmas present. Oops, gotta run. Trope your wife over by the Ferragamos? I don't know. Damn, looks like she's got bunions. I hung up the phone in a much better frame of mind than when I picked it up, my head spinning with visions of all that a new job could buy: a high-def TV, new slip covers for my sofa, maybe even a lifetime membership in the Fudge of the Month Club. "Fabulous news, Pro," I said, whirling around in a happy glow. "I've got a job interview," to which she merely rolled over on her back, her paws poised daintily in the air. "And I've got a belly that needs scratching, so hop to it." "No bellies for you, young lady," I said, marching straight past her to my bedroom. "Not after your churlish behavior with those felt antlers." Okay, so I didn't march straight past her. I may have stopped to give her a belly, a teeny scratch, but I swear it wasn't for more than 2 minutes, 5 tops. Okay, 20 if you must. Conspicuous Consumption Plaza was an upscale mall with a valet parking, frou-frou boutiques, and stock stuffers that cost more than my Corolla. To fool the human resource gal into thinking I actually belonged there, I showed up in my one and only Prada suit and one and only pair of Mono Blanc. I'd blown my mop of unruly curls reasonably smooth and was now clacking along on the mall's tavertine marble floors on my way to the executive offices. Shiny baubles glistened in shop windows, lush garlands hung overhead in the air, and the air was redolent with the scent of cinnamon spice and new money. All glitz came to a screeching halt, however, when I walked through the door to the staff offices. Suddenly, everything was linoleum and fluorescent lights. I found Molly Grover, the head of human resources, in a no-frills cubicle down the end of the corridor. I'd been expecting a kamikaze fashionista straight from the pages of Vogue, but instead I found a somewhat frazzled 30-something woman in a wrinkled pantsuit. She gazed up from a pile of papers, her face pale and pasty, her mousy brown hair hanging in limp clumps on her shoulders. "Have a seat." She gestured vaguely to a cracked plastic visitor's chair. Then, with a hopeful smile, she said, "I hear you've written for Apple." I gulped. I'm afraid there's been a bit of a mix-up. I haven't actually handled any computer accounts, although some of the septic tanks sold by one of my top clients, Toilet Masters Plumbers, do come with a computerized control panel. "Is that so?" she said, her smile rapidly fading. "Well, let me take a look at your samples anyway." I handed her my book of writing samples and she began to leaf through them. Every once in a while, she'd pause to gaze at me intently and back to the book. Finally, she slammed the book shut, shooting me one last penetrating look. "You're perfect," she exclaimed. Wow, talk about your dream interviews. I've been there less than 5 minutes and I already landed a job. Here. She reached under her desk and pulled out a shopping bag. Try it on. What is it? Your elf suit. My elf suit? Yes, one of my elves, Santa's elves, just quit and I'm in a desperate need of replacement. What about the writing job? Oh, that. I like your samples. Very impressive. You're definitely on the short list, but let's say you'd be a lot higher up on this list if you helped me out and worked as Santa's elf for a few weeks. In other words, you're bribing me? Not other words, in those words, put on the elf suit. She commanded, suddenly tough as a Marine drill sergeant. Or you don't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting the writing gig. Well, if she thought I was the kind of person who would sacrifice my dignity and self-respect just to better my chances at landing a job, she was absolutely right. It had been a long time between toilet bowl ads and I needed the bucks. So how about it, she asked, are you game? If I'd known what was in store for me, I would have grabbed my sample book and skedaddled straight to the food court. But I knew nothing of the disastrous events waiting in the wing. So with hope in my heart and a pair of curly-toed shoes in my hands, I said yes. A mistake I would soon learn of monumental proportions. So those were my chapter readings for the Christmas Sweets by Joanne Fluke, Laura Levine, and Leslie Meyer. I hope you enjoyed my 2 chapter readings, as well as the intersprawled, you know, video of the treat that I made. It looks really, really good. It is really good. It smells super good. And go check out Lisa's channel now. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, happy reading. Bye.